All right, let's dive into one of the most dramatic and, frankly, epic visions in the entire Bible. We're talking about the final vision from the prophet Zechariah. Picture this: 4 powerful war chariots bursting out from between 2 mountains made of solid brass. I mean, what on earth could that possibly mean? Well, we're going to unpack this powerful prophecy together.
So here's how we're going to tackle this. We're going to follow Zechariah's experience step by step. First, we'll look at the why, the purpose behind this whole message. Then we'll get into those crazy brass mountains. After that, we'll figure out who these mysterious 4 spirits are, see what their mission is, and finally, watch how it all wraps up.
Okay, so before we get into all the action with the chariots and mountains, we really have to understand why this vision was given in the first place. At its heart, this was a message of pure assurance for the people of Judah. You got to remember, they were feeling pretty small and vulnerable, kind of like a tiny boat in a sea of giant clashing empires.
And this is the core message, and it's a profound one. It's all about divine providence. The vision is basically pulling back the curtain to show that God is completely sovereign over all these earthly empires. As mighty and terrifying as they seem, they aren't just random forces of chaos. Nope, they are actually instruments in God's hands, playing their part in His grand plan.
With that purpose locked in our minds, let's turn to Zechariah chapter 6, verse 1. This is where the curtain rises on this absolutely incredible scene.
So Zechariah turns, and what he sees is just astonishing. 4 war chariots, and they're not just anywhere. They're bursting forth out of a narrow pass, right between 2 massive mountains made of solid brass.
You know, every single element here is just dripping with symbolism. The chariots, they represent conquering powers, war, and divine judgment. The mountains, they're like the natural giant barriers between kingdoms. But the fact that they're made of brass, that's the key. Brass signifies immense, unbreachable strength and permanence. So the fact that God's agents are coming through them, the message is crystal clear. No earthly barrier, no matter how strong, can stand in the way of God's will.
The vision just keeps building in verses 2 through 5. Now that these mysterious, powerful chariots are on the scene, Zechariah has the exact same question that we do. Who or what are these forces?
So the vision lays out the different colored horses. You've got red, black, white, and this mix of grizzled and bay. And, it makes perfect sense that Zechariah is a bit confused. He turns to the angel and basically asks the question that's on all of our minds: what am I looking at here?
And in verse 5, the angel gives this profound answer. These aren't just any old chariots. They are the 4 spirits of the heavens, and they've been sent out directly from the presence of the Lord of all the earth. Wow!
Now, this is a really crucial detail from the commentaries. A more accurate translation of spirits here is actually winds, and that little word change creates this powerful direct link to the prophecy in the book of Daniel, where the 4 winds of heaven stir up the great sea and cause 4 massive empires to rise. So we're not just talking about spirits, we're talking about world-shaking forces.
And that connection to Daniel's prophecy is the absolute key to unlocking this. The commentaries are pretty clear that these 4 chariots represent 4 successive world empires: the Babylonian, then the Persian, then the Grecian, and finally the Roman Empire. They are God's agents of providence, literally shaping the course of human history.
This whole idea of God using powerful, even pagan empires as His instruments isn't a new concept in the Bible. It's a recurring theme. For example, over in Isaiah, God explicitly calls the nation of Assyria the rod of my anger. Basically a tool He's using to carry out His judgment.
And we see it again, plain as day, in Jeremiah. God refers to King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, the guy who destroyed Jerusalem, as my servant. Think about that. This establishes a clear biblical pattern. God is the one raising up nations and directing them, even when they don't realize it.
So now that we've identified these empires as God's agents, verse 6 starts to reveal their specific assignments. This isn't just a random patrol. It's a divinely orchestrated mission with very clear objectives.
The angel lays out their movements with military precision. The black horses are sent north. The white horses follow right behind them. And the grizzled horses, they head south. Each one has a specific sphere of influence they're being sent to. Okay, so here's how the commentaries map this whole thing out. The red horse, representing Babylon, is already associated with the north country. Then, the black horse, which is Persia, is sent north to conquer Babylon. Right after them comes the white horse, representing Greece under Alexander the Great, which also goes north to conquer Persia.
And finally, the grizzled horse, which is interpreted as the Roman Empire, heads south to build its massive empire all around the Mediterranean. It's like a domino effect, all set in motion by God.
And that brings us to the climax of the whole vision, right here in verses 7 and 8. This is where we see the mission completed and we finally understand its ultimate purpose.
Verse 7 adds this one last detail, mentioning the bay horses. Now, the commentary suggests this isn't just another color, but that it means the strong ones. They're eager, restless, wanting to patrol the entire earth. It really captures that relentless, power-hungry nature of worldly empires, doesn't it?
And then, in verse 8, we get the powerful conclusion. The angel declares that the chariots that went north have quieted my spirit in that land. But what does that actually mean? For God's spirit to be quieted? It means the mission is accomplished. Justice has been served by executing divine judgment on Babylon, that northern power that had oppressed God's people for so long. God's righteous anger has been satisfied. His spirit is now at rest, at peace regarding that whole situation. The books have been balanced.
So, this ancient, incredible vision gave the people of Judah this powerful assurance that God was in control of the global superpowers of their day. And it really leaves us with a pretty compelling question for our own time, doesn't it? If God uses entire empires as instruments to carry out His will, what does that suggest about the nature of power and the way history is unfolding, even today?